We anticipate in the next 10 to 12 years, approximately 8 to 6 million Hispanics coming into the United States and 41 million Asians. You have been the majority minority for 400 years in this country. You have been the number 2 population for 400 years. You're going to get kicked out of being number 2. You're going to go down and become number 4. Now, common sense, even a 3rd grade education would tell you, if you didn't get anything when you were number 2, you all jumped ahead of me, but anyway, you can guess what you're going to get when you become number 4.
President Biden, do you support reparations?
Well, I mean, since I haven't spoken on this, number one, the reason we're the country we are is because of innovation. We've been able to cherry pick the best from every single continent. The people who come here have determination, resilience. They are ready to stand up and work like the devil. We have 24 out of 100 children in our school today is Hispanic. The idea that we are going to walk away and not provide every opportunity for them is that not only stupid and immoral, but it's bad for America. They are the future of America.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest. Which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. This is what we are faced with. This is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
We are owed $104 trillion on the very low end, plus $735 billion recurring. This number does not include the cost of about 50 Black Wall Streets that were decimated, nor compound interest from 2017 when Sean D. Rochester's book, The Black Tax, was published, nor the cost of Black life, nor the cost of living increases, nor the war on drugs, nor the current day pandemic. The number I'm working with is for slavery, Jim Crow, and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage in the country our ancestors built with their lives.
Good evening on the West Coast. Good evening in the mountain. Good evening in the Central. Good evening on the East Coast. You know exactly who it is, family. Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the Reparationist perspective, bringing you those Freedmen hot topics and making the case for reparations, making the case for weaponizing our votes, socializing our suffering. Yes, family, and today we're going to talk about what these rising gas prices is really all about, as folks try to educate me, who is degreed in finance, on supply and demand. Everybody wants to act as if they've got the answers that are so apparent. Of course, it's about supply and demand. This broadcast is about the puckery wherein the supply and demand is concerned, and how stupid it is for Americans to be okay with rising gas prices on the heels of a pandemic that has already leveled many Americans. Well, let me just speak for Freedmen. It has leveled Freedmen financially. Nobody's talking about that, as these gas prices are probably going to be at $10 within a month or so. And so I've just come to you today to share with you why, the why back of supply and demand, and how it is on purpose, and how complicit the Biden administration is in making sure freedmen specifically are harmed the most. You see, if you white folks and you immigrants, and you eat from the wealth our ancestors built with their lives, you can sit up here and be like Stephen Colbert, who had the unmitigated gall to say he'd be willing to pay $16 a gallon because he drives a Tesla. He gets to drive a $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 electric car. But if freedmen have a national median income of $41,000, how can they afford a $56,000 electric car? Let's get into it. Please like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications if you feel so compelled. Bless the broadcast. It enables me to edutain the masses while advocating for reparations exclusively for freedmen. So let me share my screen. Stand by. I want to first of all talk about why Russia has invaded Ukraine. Now, many of you may know this already, but let me show the headline to give you some context, okay? Let me make me a little bit smaller here so you can see. So let's start with this article. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just want you to get the gist of it. So I'm just putting the headline there so it can be a part of the broadcast. So let's go here. All right. Russia has launched a devastating attack on Ukraine, a European democracy of 44 million people, bombing its cities and closing in on the capital, Kyiv, prompting a mass exodus of refugees. But why did Russia's authoritarian leader tear up a peace deal with his neighbor and unleash what European leaders have labeled Putin's war? He has shattered peace in Europe and thrown the continent's entire security structure into jeopardy. So why did they invade? In a pre-dawn TV address on February 24, President Putin declared Russia could not feel safe, develop, and exist because of what he claimed was a constant threat from modern Ukraine. Okay? Now, basically, this is about the borders. Okay? Ukraine, Crimea, Kyiv, all used to be a part of Russia. And so now, this fight in a nutshell, with just a little bullet point, it's all about those borders. And what Putin has been demanding of Ukraine is to stay neutral and not join NATO, which is what the United States is a part of, okay? You got all of these war criminals coming together under NATO, and they're trying to pull Ukraine in as well. And this has been hot since Gorbachev. And that's why you see these constant wars between Russia, Ukraine, Crimea. This is why you're seeing it. Because just like the U.S. would not want Mexico or Canada threatening its borders, Russia does not want Ukraine to be a part of NATO for the EU, the European Union, the U.S. to threaten its borders. And if they do, that's an imminent threat where our missiles and military will be on that border. And like Putin said, we don't feel safe with the U.S. and the EU on the Ukrainian borders. We don't feel like we can develop, and we don't feel like we can exist because you pose an imminent threat to Russia. So in order to stop this nonsense, he's demanding that Ukraine permanently drop this conversation about being a part of NATO. And what this Mickey-Ficky cowardice country has done is supply Ukraine with $13.6 billion of our reparations. That's right, I'm pocket watching. Every time they spend any money while telling us no, that they can't afford to repair the very freedmen whose ancestors built this country with their lives, I am attributing your spending, oh Biden, to you spending the very reparations you tell us that you can't make us whole with, while we are in the fight of our lives to prevent from becoming the permanent bottom caste. So in effect, the way the US and the EU, the European Union, the way they fight Russia is by using Ukraine. Okay? They're using Ukraine to fight a war. And in effect, in essence, ergo, we are officially at war with Russia. Whenever, and Putin's already said it, whenever you administer sanctions and supply Ukraine with weapons, you have staged war. Period. End of story. So the US and the EU, the European Union, are financing the Ukrainian war with Russia. And that's what makes this so hostile. And that's what makes, this nuclear kind of threat kind of imminent if this continues. All right. So moving on, I want to give you some framework. Putin wants Ukraine to denounce any interest in NATO because NATO, which the U.S. is a party to, wants to set up shop, military shop on the Ukrainian borders to keep Russia in check. And just like they would not have that of Mexico or Canada, which borders us, Russia doesn't want it for their country. Okay? So moving on, let's talk about, let me come back over here, stop this and share another. What's up, Trey Lincoln? I see you. I see you, Tassetti Townsend. Thank you for joining the live. And for those of you who are watching for Facebook and Twitter, welcome to the live, my loves. I cannot see you. If you'd like to participate in exchange, do so over in ScrewTube at the Reparations Perspective channel. So let's move on from there. Next thing I want to share with you. So I gave you a little bit of foundation. Listen, I've been trying to educate myself as I edutain you guys. So it may not have been the most prolific, profound of an explanation, but I gave it to you the way I understand it. I like things taught to me like a 5-year-old, okay? That's so I broke it down as best I could. I hope I didn't confuse you. Okay, let's see here. So as I mentioned here, let me share this article, this headline. So Biden's Ukraine aid package is getting supersized by Congress. Okay, so let's go here. I'm just going to touch on these little things. You can look up the articles at your discretion. I don't want to be here all day. I don't want to keep you long. So I'm just going to give you little highlights and tell you the way I see it, okay? Well, see, this is what I hate, these freaking ads. Oh, Lord, that's what I cannot say. I'm trying. Let me see if y'all can see that. Okay, y'all see enough of the article to write that down, take your notes, and look it up at your discretion, okay? Well, that's not what I want. Okay, I'm done with that article. Hold on one second, guys. It didn't copy and paste the way I needed it to. Did I lose it? No, there it is. Okay. I want to show the headline and read from the other tab. Just a second. Okay. So, lawmakers on Wednesday unveiled the $13.6 billion with the B dollar Ukraine aid package that took President Joe Biden's request for weapons and training for Ukrainian forces and put it on steroids. Now, let me read this one section. Part of a sweeping $1.5 trillion measure to fund the federal government, the $13.6 billion package would buy $3 billion in new weapons for Ukraine instead of the $1.5 billion in new weapons included in Biden's $10 billion request. It's a win for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who pleaded with the U.S. lawmakers in a Zoom call Saturday for more support as his country fights a Russian invasion. Now, I want you to see, I want to share with you next, how Biden is using our tax dollars to, in effect, fund the Nazi army of the Ukrainian country, of the Ukrainians, okay? Let me show you that. Let me show you that, because Putin is not lying. Okay, let me get to that article. Just a second, family. I have a lot of articles open. I'm digging through. Let me just show you this nonsense by Stephen Colbert real quick before I share with you about who we're actually funding, the Nazis of Ukraine. Hold on.
I'll tell you what, I will never complain about a destination wedding again. Russia has been hit with a series of crippling sanctions, and it looks like there's more to come because the U.S. and its European allies are now discussing banning imports of Russian oil. Take that, Putin. We're not going to buy our gas from a war criminal. We're going to buy it from the good guys, Saudi Arabia. But it's going to cost. Since the invasion, oil prices have skyrocketed. Today, the average gas price in America hit an all-time record high of over $4 per gallon. Okay, that stings, but a clean conscience is worth $1 or $2. I'm willing to pay. It's important. It's important. I'm willing to pay $4 a gallon. Hell, I'll pay $15 a gallon because I drive a Tesla. Right now, people all over the world are trying to find...
That was not even remotely funny. So this is how they're trying to sell Americans on rallying behind support of this war by agreeing to gas prices going through the roof, while this Mickey here drives a Tesla, which freedmen cannot afford. Today, the average gas price in America hits an all-time record high of over $4 per gallon. Okay, that stings, but a clean conscience is worth $1 or $2. Oh, you just heard him say that. I want to hear from the people. So one of the commenters says, what about the single mom driving a Chevy Malibu who is worried about being able to make her rent payment, car insurance, daycare, and still have enough food on the table? Celebrities are so out of touch with what regular people are going through due to these high gas prices. Now, Liz is a white woman, right? She's a white woman. Imagine how much more a horror this is for those of us who have been neutralized economically, while Colbert just sits here and has a good laugh. Okay? Stop worrying about money, says guy who doesn't have to worry about money. F these people. Glenn Greenwald said Stephen Colbert, who earns $15 million per year from CBS, has a net worth approaching $100 million, says it's worth it to endure higher gas prices so that you have a clean conscience. out of touch doesn't even begin to describe this. You cultural elites have never been more condescending, snotty, or out of touch. So that's just some of the comments. They're giving him the work as they should. They're giving him the blues as they should. Now, let me share about these Nazis over here. Hold on one second. Okay, please like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications. I'm a one-woman operation. My apologies, I have to jump around to make my point, but I don't want you guys to think I'm making things up, so it's better to just show you better than tell you. And these headlines help me to paint the picture of how we got to $10. Well, it's like about $9.99. I heard that I've seen signs out here in LA for about $9 a gallon. I know here in Long Beach, it was $5.59. I had a quarter of a tank. It took close to $80 to fill it up 3/4 of the way. It's crazy. So this is a profile. Who are Ukraine's far-right Azov regiment? The far-right neo-Nazi group has expanded to become part of Ukraine's armed forces, a street militia, and a political party. Now, these are the same assholes that were at a sporting event. Make sure y'all can see the title. Hold on. This is from Al Jazeera. You can see this and look these articles up and read them at your discretion. If I read every one of these, we'd be here all night. So I'm just giving you an overview to make my case. All right? So you can see that just fine. Let me go back. Hold on. So the far-right neo-Nazi group has expanded to become a part of Ukraine's armed forces, a street militia, and a political party. Okay, back to my thought. These are the same jerks that had a big old banner waving after the Glacier Donkey race soldier Derek Chauvin executed Mr. George Floyd. They had a big old flag waving to free Chauvin. And this is who the Biden administration decides to fund with more of our reparations. Hold on, let me read just a little bit, and then I'll jump to my last couple of articles. Okay, let me show you this photo of these glacier donkeys that Biden is funding with our reparations, while telling us no to reparations, of course. As the Russian invasion of Ukraine enters its 6th day, a Ukrainian far-right military regiment is back in the headlines. Russian President Vladimir Putin referenced the presence of such units within the Ukrainian military as one of the reasons for launching his so-called special military operation to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. On Monday, Ukraine's National Guard tweeted a video showing Azov fighters coating their bullets in pig fat to be used allegedly against Muslim Chechens, allies of Russia deployed in their country. Azov has also been involved in training civilians through military exercises in the run-up to Russia's invasion. So what is the Azov regiment? Azov is a far-right, all-volunteer infantry military unit whose members, estimated at 900, are ultra-nationalists and accused of harboring neo-Nazi and white supremacist ideology. Me speaking. So this is like the Glacier Donkey race soldiers that in 2006 the FBI said had been hired on every police force throughout this country. So you got the KKK funding the neo-Nazis in this war against Russia with our reparations. That's my point. Okay? So let me stop sharing that. Hold on one second. I'm coming back to share another article. So this one talks about silly Americans being willing to pay these exorbitant gas prices. Now, I find this hard to believe. When it comes to the Dixiecrats, aka the DEMORATS, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. It's getting so bad with them and their lies, you can't even really believe what you see either. So they're getting the country, all in a lather over defeating Russia with our reparations to fund the neo-Nazi Ukrainian army. And Americans are willing to pay higher gas prices to defeat Putin. Now, that is a lie. Wherein freedmen are concerned, we're not willing to do this nonsense. And I find it hard to believe that most white folks are okay with this, based on the way they came for Colbert for suggesting this nonsense. Hold on one second. I'm just going to read just a little bit of this article. Americans historically have favored low energy prices, even though those low prices are partly the result of direct and indirect subsidies paid for by taxpayers. They seem to think low gas prices are guaranteed by the Constitution, along with the right to bear arms and unlimited free speech for corporations, but not pipeline protesters. In a poll conducted last week by Reuters, 80% of respondents, including solid majorities of Republicans and Democrats, said they support the idea of not importing any oil from Russia, even if that leads to higher gas prices at the pump. Okay? In 2021, the U.S. imported an average of 209,000 barrels per day of crude oil and 500,000 barrels per day of other petroleum products from Russia, according to the American Fuel and Petrochemical Manufacturers Trade Association. Are you sitting down? Here's the news that might shock you. Senators Joe Manchin of West Virginia and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska on Thursday proposed bipartisan legislation to ban Russian energy imports in response to the invasion of Ukraine, calling it a counter to Russia weaponizing energy. Why would that be surprising? Like I told you, it's the KKK funding the neo-Nazis. Back to the text. Manchin, you may recall, won't lift a finger to fund electric vehicles for the U.S. Postal Service, protect voting rights for minorities. That's not us, people. That's for the immigrants. Or preserve a woman's right to choose how to manage her own body. But he is at the forefront of this new legislation. One has to wonder what is in it for him, as he obviously doesn't care a flying fig leaf about his constituents. White House spokesperson Jen Psaki told reporters on Friday, "We are looking at ways to reduce the import of Russian oil while also making sure that we are maintaining the global supply needs out there." Biden has been getting hammered because inflation has spiked and prices at the pump have risen under his watch. Democrats, with good reason, are dreading an election disaster this November and eager to avoid angering voters. So what do? You go to war with Russia and you make the Ukrainians fight it while funding them with what? Our reparations. Okay? So I'm getting to my point before I pray us out. So they talked in here about this sanction against Russia, right? Well, I don't know if you know it, but let me share with you how this wasn't thought out. It was only concocted. It wasn't thought out. It was concocted to get white folks on board to pay higher gas prices to constitute and justify passing 1.5 trillion spending bills with 13.6 billion going to Ukraine for them to fight Russia. The cowards that the EU and America are. Okay? They get them to fight him. And so they're losing people. And so they're trying to get white America on board to try to save themselves during the midterms. But I've got a Freedmen voter strategy I will roll out yet again before I pray us out. So stick a pin in it, because I got something else I want to read to you about how much oil is actually imported. Here we go. Let me stop sharing that and share this. Hold on, family. Stop. Yes, Herb saying, I see you, Danielle Witten. I love my wife, 0007. Thank you guys for joining the live. I'm almost done. Yeah, Congress passed. It was 13.6 billion, if you're nasty, in Ukrainian aid. Absolutely, they did. Our reparations. Hold on. I want to show you something, because I don't want folks to be like, she makes stuff up. No, I'm bringing you the receipts. I can back up what I'm saying. How much of U.S. oil comes from Russia? Russian oils make up 8% of U.S. oil imports. In most European countries, that number is much higher. I just want to show you that there's not an inverse relationship to these rising gas prices and the oil that we import from Russia. Let me finish reading this little piece. I'm going to scroll on this one. President Joe Biden's ban on Russian oil strikes at one of the largest oil exporters to the U.S., a move that could have wide impact even though imports account for a small portion of the overall U.S. oil supply. Did you hear that? This thing could have a wide impact even though imports account for a small portion of the overall U.S. oil supply. Russian crude oil and petroleum product exports to the U.S. represent 8% of all its imported oil and less than 2% of the U.S. supply. Did you hear that? An NBC News analysis of U.S. and European oil data found this is a far cry from European nations. About half import most of their oil, and of that imported oil, an average of 20% comes from Russia. Okay, so oil imports account for about 20% of the entire U.S. supply, but only 2%. Okay, Russian crude oil and petroleum product exports to the U.S. represent 8% of all its imported oil and less than 2% of the U.S. supply. So if this is the case, why can't we just make up the difference domestically? Right? That's what I asked myself when I found out these numbers. Well, let me show you why. Let me show you what this is really all about. Hold on, family. Welcome to the live. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications. Here you go. Make sure you can see it. Okay. Let me go back and I can read from this article. This is what this is really all about, family. And it is cheaper, according to some articles I've read. It's much cheaper to import than to drill domestically. But you should be able to drill domestically if you're going to sit up here and put sanctions on the Russian imports. Then you should offset that by drilling domestically, even if it costs a little more to do so. So that you don't continue to squeeze the life out of freedmen economically with all of this inflation. Not just at the pump, it's also at the grocery stores. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. It is rumored to be as high as $10 in most places. And out here in California, it's not far off. Okay? So let me copy and paste this and so I can read it in another screen and keep that headline there. So I want to show you something else that's happening with the Saudis. They're not answering its calls, but one step at a time as I peel the onion one layer at a time. Well, what's going on? Oh, Lord, it's moving slow, family. Forgive, and forgive some more. This is ridiculous. It is buffering. Okay. Hold on, family. It's buffering. Let me read from the one that's already open. VP Kamala Harris and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg were criticized Monday for a tone-deaf event focused on promoting electric buses as gas prices soared for most Americans. Representative Mark Wayne Mullen, Republican of Oklahoma, a member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, tweeted, "The Biden administration cannot be more tone-deaf." Vice President Kamala Harris and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg spent the afternoon promoting electric vehicles and Green New Deal policies. Are you kidding me? Mullen wrote. Harris and her possible 2024 rival Buttigieg teamed up for an event celebrating the first anniversary of the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan Act, which passed last March with only Democratic support. Neither Harris nor Buttigieg specifically mentioned gas prices while speaking in the White House adjacent Eisenhower Executive Office building, or the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which threatens to send those prices even higher. Harris asked her audience to imagine a future with electric vehicles. Imagine a future, the freight trucks that deliver bread and milk to our grocery store shelves, and the buses that take children to school and parents to work. Imagine all the heavy-duty vehicles that keep our supply lines strong and allow our economy to grow. Imagine that they produce zero emissions. Well, you all imagined it, she said. So this is why these gas prices are going through the roof. This is the truth. That's why we're here today, Harris continued, because we have the ability to see what can be unburdened by what has been and then to make the possible actually happen. Harris announced the release of $1.5 billion to local transit authorities for electric buses. The VP said the Transportation Department also was releasing $2.2 billion from the American Rescue Plan Act to 35 transit agencies in 18 states to help communities and bring more transit workers and keep transit services running. A new EPA rule will tighten emission standards for heavy trucks, Harris said. Okay. Basically, I'm not going to read this whole thing. Basically, electric cars with a median price of $50,000 and greater are not selling. They've only sold about 3% of the inventory. 20% of that is Tesla. Okay? Just so you know. Sorry, family. It's buffering. Just so you know why Tassetti Townsend says, let's call him Pete Judy Bug. That's easier to pronounce. Listen, I want you to understand, family, that when you're dealing with the Demorats and the Dixiecrats, you've got they're the same. And the Republicans, repugnant clans, that's my new name for them. You've got to look at things with your third eye. They lie like a rug. They will sit up here and tell you we've got to put the squeeze on Russia. All the while the real agenda is to get rid of gas and bring in the Green New Deal at the expense of who? Their constituents. And if you've killed and stolen all the wealth, you ain't got no problem like a Stephen Colbert to sit up here and say, I'm glad to pay $16 a gallon because I drive a Tesla. You ain't got no problem as an immigrant who's given jobs that pay an American wage, who are getting hired over freedmen, who are last to be hired, first fired, highest rates of unemployment and underemployment and homelessness in the country. Of course, you don't have a problem with rising gas prices, because who does this tether to the bottom of the Titanic as the anchor of this country's capitalism? Freedmen exclusively. So he clearly didn't think this through, because apparently it takes a minute to get things up and running domestically. So what did he do? Let's see what he did in lieu of that. Let's see what Biden tried to do, and folks would not even answer the phone. Let's go to that article. Stand by. Here we go. What is going on? This buffering is out of control, family. Hold on. Okay, y'all. I can't. Let me see. This is crazy. Okay, I'm not going to try to share it because every time I try to share it, it buffers. So let me just read the article so we can get through this thing here. Just a second, family. It is really cutting up. Really cutting up tonight. I don't understand what's going on. They don't want me to talk about this. This is the worst. It is absolutely the worst. It's freezing on me. And I had a couple more points to make to this, but I can't get my article out. I guess I'm going to have to start copying and pasting them because that article won't act right. Well, basically, in effect, Biden has offended the Saudis. Let me see if I can get to that article. Wow, they're all blank. This is insane. They are all blank. I don't get what's going on. Hold on, let me see if I put my Ethernet cable in. Will it function properly? Hold on, family. Let's try this. Because this is not working properly. It might be my internet. Hold on, family. Yeah, it must be the internet connection, family, because I put the Ethernet cable in and my articles are still blank. But in effect, this wasn't even well thought out. They are so eager to go to war with Russia that they forget that they offended the Saudis, dipping in the Saudi business of who the Saudis decide to fight. You see, the U.S. is forever dipping its nose in everybody else's business in the name of democracy in order to steal and rob and pillage them for their resources. So they went sideways earlier in the year against the Saudis, and the prince has not forgotten. So now he's trying to give them a call to get some oil imports from these countries that he has dogged out, and they're not picking up the phone. Because we sit up here with moral judgment and authority and look down our nose at other folks that copy our blood sport of encroaching on other countries to rob them of their resources. We have the unmitigated gall to talk bad about them, and then we get Ukraine engaged in a war and pull the rug on the imports without setting things up domestically first to ensure that the constituents don't feel this at the pump as we come off of a 2.5 year long pandemic. I think it's 2 years this month, 2019, 2020. No, I think it was March 2020. Yeah, it's officially 2 years, almost to the date, the middle of March, when we were laid off of the courts. So on the heels of a 2 years pandemic, Biden pretends that freedmen don't want to work to constitute flooding the zone with refugees from Ukraine and refugees from Afghanistan and illegal immigrants that are crossing the border, whom I've shared with you on past broadcasts, are now lacing the drugs with fentanyl in our communities to kill us off, since Biden can't make slaves of the opioid and crack addicted. They're useless as slaves in the private prison industrial complex. So he funds $30 million for crack pipes and needles to give to them to use these illicit drugs from the Mexican cartels that are allowed in this country because the borders have been open, to come in our communities and lace it with fentanyl to kill us. Those of us who are drug addicted. And now he's taking $13.6 billion to fund the neo-Nazi Ukrainian troops and trying to shame Africa. The EU and the US want Africa to get involved. I saw recent reports, and I'll bring that on another date when I can pull the article up and dig right into it, where they're now trying to shame South Africa from not getting involved in the KKK versus the neo-Nazi war, as if this has anything to do with them. They got their own issues as we've got our own issues. But this is Biden's way of trying to win Republican votes at the polls come the midterms, to try to save face and save the Congress. Let's use war. So we're going to put more of a squeeze on freedmen, make it impossible for them to be able to afford these electric vehicles. So they're going to have to pay this money at the pump and walk or take buses or do whatever they've got to do to survive it, while being the highest unemployed, the highest rates of homelessness, and the highest rates of underemployment, suffering under the most egregious racial wealth gap. This is what 87% of our electorate continues to show up to the polls to vote for. Now, Dr. Claude Anderson is in full support of my freedmen voter strategy. You have to get beyond yourself and understand this ain't a party thing. It's a freedmen flourishing thing. You've got to grow a backbone in the kahungas of our ancestors who knew when to pivot when the Republicans chose not to give us the civil rights that the boomers, by and large, got to benefit from. Not the Gen Xers, not the millennials. We got a little bit as Gen X if you border them like I do. But you also know what it's like, what it feels like to be one of the younger Gen Xers. When you border that boomer Gen X piece, you know what it's like, me speaking for myself, to be at a major bank and to be replaced from the teller all the way through upper level management, replaced with immigrants. And like I said often, as California goes, so goes the nation. I just read an article about the Hispanics having a totally Spanish-speaking hospital in Houston. So you have to understand that when we continue to vote blue, no matter damn who, we are signing up for our own ethno-genocide. We are making it easy for the DEMORATS to ethno-genocide us right about this piece. You see them giving away our reparations to everyone but us who needs it the most. We get $30 million crack pipes funded to white and immigrant-run drug programs. Okay? And Maya Angelou on the back of a slaveholder quarter. And a Juneteenth holiday we were already celebrating. Oh, and let's not forget hip-hop. While other groups get the bag and protections. We get $350 billion with a B more dollars to fund the Glacier Donkey race soldiers who come up in our communities. Not the immigrant, not the refugee, not the white folks communities, to execute us with impunity. And so, if we don't develop a strategy akin to the refugees and the immigrants who, by and large, vote blue if they're earning under $50,000, and once they're $50,000 and over, they vote red. And so right now, while they're divided, we need to come in with a strategy. And you have to understand, family, it's not just a midterm strategy. We are going to have to bring these Mickey-Ficky DEMORATS to their knees until God gives me a sign to pivot. We cannot allow them to occupy this White House, because when the DEMORATS have a trifecta, we as freedmen are the only ones in distress. You didn't see Trump entering into war. He had signed a bipartisan bill to give $250 million annually to the HBCUs. Jim Crow Joe reduced that to $2.7 billion flat, while giving $11 billion to Hispanics, and I want to say $8 billion to Asians. Gave us $2.7 billion. So Trump didn't start no wars with Russia. Trump gave us more money towards our HBCUs. Trump was even willing to sit with Ice Cube and develop a reparations plan. Now, it needed a lot more teeth in it, but at least Ice Cube and the Trump administration was willing to sit down and have a conversation. Trump closed these borders and wasn't oppressing freedmen with our most imminent threat, immigration. This is why black men are the highest rates of unemployed and underemployed in this country that our ancestors built with their lives. Trump didn't give the police $350 billion more dollars. And he got a lot of pushback when he was trying to go into Chicago with the troops to get the Mexican drug cartels under control. So he may not have done as anything for us, but he certainly wasn't doing the things Biden is doing to hurt us. Trump didn't give us crack pipes. He didn't give us Maya Angelou on the back of a slaveholder quarter. He didn't give us Juneteenth. We didn't ask for Juneteenth. We didn't ask for no hip-hop holiday. Well, I think that was part of Ice Cube's little package. But that don't mean nothing to us. We don't need symbolism. We need real solutions. And we need to be unlike the CDC, who refused to even have a conversation with the man. Understand, family, this election cycle and future election cycles ain't about who's got an agenda for you. Because the DEMORATS lie about it. Remember, we were supposed to be getting the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. That's been replaced by the $350 billion to go to the Glacier Donkey race soldiers to execute us with impunity in our own communities. So the Dixiecrats lie. I'm not looking for nothing from the Republicans. I'm telling you, let's weaponize this vote and socialize our suffering. Trump wasn't giving away millions upon billions to these immigrants and refugee groups. I like to socialize my suffering. I cannot stand when the DEMORATS have a trifecta and we're the only ones in distress. And so Dr. Claude Anderson was in support of my closed border strategy. You are to vet your candidates near you who are on that ticket for midterms and only elect those who believe in closed borders. Party be damned. This ain't a party thing. This ain't a reparations thing. This ain't a black agenda thing. This is about freedmen stemming the tide. This is about freedmen getting off the front line of the guillotine. As we work feverishly in the background to turn the Titanic around and at least try and get a down payment on our reparations, if we get $20 trillion to help as a down payment to get some money into our people's pockets as a down payment on the reparations, of which is 6.2 quadrillion or greater. I told y'all Thomas Kramer multiplied about 15 working hours times 3 cents per hour from 1776 to 1865. He compounded it at 6% to come up with 6.2 quadrillion. That's the low end. Okay? So we're not asking for those checks to be stroked in one sitting. But we can take it over we can take it monthly, fund it to our accounts, like we did the pandemic money, which was also our reparations. We can take it monthly over the course of as many years as it takes for them to stop oppressing us. But that's not coming midterm. It ain't coming in 2024. We're going to have to do this for several election cycles for it to be effective. And if we don't and choose to stay home, then don't complain about the outcome. But while we still have power, we've got to invoke a freedmen voter strategy. Or we're setting our kids up to fail for the rest of their days if we don't turn the Titanic around. Ain't no help coming. We are the help we seek. Let me see what y'all got to say about it before I pray us out. Hi, Maurice Carlisle. He says something is not adding up. I see the gas prices as part of a Ponzi scheme to scam the customers. Well, you know what, fam? Close. Gas is about supply and demand, and if you starve the supply, but the demand, doesn't shrink to those levels, now you've got rising gas prices. And like I said throughout the broadcast, Biden started a war with Russia, getting into Russia-Ukraine mess because they want them in Nato so they can take over the borders of Russia through Ukraine and, keep them in line, setting themselves up to get those resources. Okay? So when he chose to do that and then put sanctions on Russia and then start making calls, that was ass backwards. And I'm telling you, with electric cars only having sold 3% in this country, that is what this is really about. If we squeeze them on these gas prices, it'll force their hands to go and buy $50,000 plus $50,000 on up electric vehicles to get that moving in the name of the Green New Deal. They're pretty much financing the Green New Deal on the backs of the constituents. Can I follow you on Twitter? I love my wife, 0007. Sure. Put your title in the chat. So I don't even know. Is it the same as what I'm seeing here over in ScrewTube? Daniel Witten, I thank you so much. She says she liked and shared it. Thank you so much. Yes, family, I am being shadow banned. So if you could please like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notifications, that would be very, very helpful. Thank you, Danielle. I appreciate you, fam. Okay, so Herb Saint, Congress passed 13 Yes, we went over that. 13.6 billion. Hi, Lance Polk. Okay, Lance Polk says other hydrocarbons is a drop in the bucket since we consume 20 million barrels per day of crude. The prices are high due to oil speculators running up the price of crude on some BS. Correct, Lance. Correct. It's all about the Benjamins. And to get to the Benjamins, you gotta, you gotta fake. You gotta make stuff up. You gotta make it about, oh, we've got to put sanctions on Russia. Because how many Americans are going to sit up here and do the math? Not many. We're the sharpest tools in the drawer. We're the sharpest knives over here at the Reparations perspective. We like to look into the data and get to the bottom of what's really going on. Lance goes on to say, 200,000 of crude and the 500,000 of other hydrocarbons is a drop. Oh, it's a drop in the bucket since we consumed. I thought I read that. It looks like a repeat. Okay. Paying $10 per gallon for gasoline is some local price gouging going on. Absolutely, fam. They're getting wealthy all the way to the bank, all the while silly Americans, not Friedman, I'm sure, are sitting up here wanting higher gas prices to defeat Putin, who's already beating the brakes off of Ukraine, no matter what you heard, okay? Herb Saint says, the people of Ukraine need our immediate help, and this omnibus is the quickest and most direct way of getting them the help fast, he said on the Senate floor. Chuck Schumer, Democratic Senate. Yes, Herb Saint, they are definitely doing a number on the psyches of Americans. This is akin to the thing they did with Trump. They made him out to be a worse racist than Biden. He had no records against Friedman, and yet 87% of our electorate sheepwalked to the polls to deliver him the White House. So yeah, this is what they do. These are the tricks they play on the American psyche to make you think you're winning, to be giving more money up to them to line their pockets in the name of beating Putin, which ain't gonna happen. Lance Polk says, and it's not even gasoline season yet. Ain't that the truth? I don't know how people are going to make it through gasoline season. Herb Saint says, COVID aid not included. Schumer noted, however, earlier on Thursday that he was deeply disappointed that the government funding package won't include COVID-19 aid. But you're sending $13.6 billion to the Ukraine neo-Nazis who will not defeat Putin. That's right. Talk about it anyway. Tell it. Absolutely, Danielle. You know I am. I keep it 100% trill over here. Herb Saint says Ukraine is a breadbasket. I think you mean bread as in money. Absolutely, fam. All of it is. All of it is, family, at our expense. This is more and more of our reparations being spent on everyone but those of us who descend from U.S. chattel slavery. And I'm always over here to pull in current events, to make the case for reparations, to make the case for weaponizing our vote and socializing our suffering. And with that being said, family, that's my time. I'm a little over, but I didn't go over too bad. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me live. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications. And if you feel so compelled, bless the broadcast. My Cash App and my PayPal are below. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever Freeman and his allies are, our God truly is, because family, you are the face of God. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. Yes, you are. If nobody's told you today, family, know this, that I love you black and I love you oh so strong. Yes, I do. Until we meet, hopefully tomorrow, I want you to make it a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your evening and work day tomorrow. Until then, family, I'm bidding you a ton of peace, love, and reparations. I'm out.